So some people write heartbreak anthems, you made a costume.
Yeah.
Rolling. Why did you make the coat?
If truth be told, I actually had my heart broken a couple months before, and I needed a creative project to preoccupy myself with after hours, and I'd always wanted to learn how to sew an article of clothing or a costume from scratch.
Okay, so some people write heartbreak anthems, you made a costume.
Yeah.
So at the time, you didn't know you'd make this piece, but would end up just wanted to make some kind of costume.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I didn't have any kind of inspiration in mind. I just knew I wanted to pick up a new skill. I really like villain and antagonist characters. I think their complicated personalities and psyches are interesting. The film I ultimately selected as my inspiration I chosen for 4 reasons. Number 1, the film itself passes the Bechdel test. Number 2, the story revolves around 2 female anti-heroes, both of whom are working women and they're pioneers in what they do. 3, I love the fashion. I love the 70s punk aesthetic that film has. And number 4, if I go back a layer and view it on a production level, I realized there was a lot of exceptional female film talent involved in the process of bringing these characters to life. You've got costume designer Jenny Beavan, makeup and hair designer Nadia Stacey, and of course the actresses who breathe life into their creations. It's really inspiring to see women both working on and behind the screen. I would like to be a filmmaker one day. I'm just trying to find where I fit in this industry. So I treated the film like a case study, looking at what elements made it a success, what attributes could I learn from. And I think the reason I honed in on this one particular on-screen character is because she's fearless and unapologetically so. And because she takes things to the extreme, that meant I didn't have to have a framework to stay within. There weren't any boundaries with her. So I thought that would be a lot of fun. And I really liked the idea of the polarized black and white tonal scheme.
How did you design the pattern?
I didn't. That's the beautiful thing about the internet. I came across this website, which is for sewing enthusiasts, and I noticed that someone else had uploaded these pattern designs. They're not identical to the original movie. I think what's happened is someone's looked at the film and they must know a heck of a lot more about clothes than I do, but they've managed to replicate up to an extent what the central pattern pieces are. But it's then down to me to pick which fabrics and how I choose to embellish those patterns that are free online.
How long did that end up taking, the creation of the coat?
I was in prep for 1 month, maybe 2. This was new terrain for me. I haven't made a costume from scratch like this before. So I decided to make some miniatures to see how the pattern pieces would come together. And then my next step was to get some really cheap mock-up fabric to do a life-size version. Trust me, I made loads of mistakes, so I'm so glad I did a dummy run first. But in terms of the actual thing, I think the sewing part only took 3 weeks.
Moving to the video, Seeing Spots, how did that come about?
There weren't any plans originally to make a short film. I had recorded a time-lapse of me making the costume, and I'd done a few short videos to document my progress. But it wasn't until 2 Comic-Cons and a Halloween party later that I realized I didn't have a nice, ta-da, here's the final piece. And the coat was starting to look a bit grubby and a bit worse for wear by this point, so I thought if I'm gonna do something, I need to do it now. My first thought was to do a photo shoot, and not a video shoot, but the idea had snowballed and it ended up being this short form fashion parody that we know today.
Is this a first for you as a producer, or have you done something like this before?
In short, no. I have produced and worked on short films before, but they were mostly under the umbrella of BFI Film Academy short courses and the occasional thing a friend might be doing, and I'll help out with that. This was the first time I felt properly on my own in terms of getting a project up off the ground and completed. I had the advantage of my day job. I have experience working in the editorial department of the film industry. For several years I was a trainee, and in more recent times I've been working as an assistant editor. So I had a fairly decent understanding of the post-production processes, but in terms of pre-production and production, there was a lot for me to get my head around as a less experienced producer. And this was my first time directing as well, so it was a challenge to adjust.
Where did you source the crew from, and how was the production paid for?
So every week I set part of my paycheck to one side, and that then became the budget for Seeing Spots. The project was privately funded through that alone. Everyone was paid, the production was insured, and the animals and their trainers were provided by a well-respected film and TV animal agency. So we adhered to very high health and safety standards. It was important to me to do things by the book and to do it properly. In terms of the crew, I knew a lot of them socially through networking, just filmmakers knowing other filmmakers. And in terms of the post-production crew specifically, a lot of them were colleagues I've worked with on previous jobs. There were a handful of people I had to formally reach out to and recruit onto the crew that way. I didn't have anyone that I knew to fill that role. And there were some crewmates who recommended a few people as well to fill roles that were also vacant. The crew are a fantastic bunch of people. They're really lovely to work with. And if it wasn't for the teamwork and collaboration, this project would not be what it is. And actually without them, it wouldn't have been possible. Genuinely. I was very lucky that people were willing to give me a hand with something like this. I know that I won't make any money back on Seeing Spots. I don't own the IP, so I can't earn money from it. And I'm also avoiding film festivals for that same reason. But I am releasing it online as a fan-made parody cosplay, because at the end of the day, that's really all it is. I'm viewing the expenditure as an investment into myself as a creative. This project allowed me to explore more producer-led roles and take on more creative responsibility. No one's going to hand me these opportunities, so I have to carve them out for myself. I really want to go to film school, so I'm hoping that I can now apply to film schools with Seeing Spots as part of my portfolio.